In my course, I showed you how to network to other computers on your home network. Once you do that, from your computer, you can control that remote device and access the folders and cut, copy, paste, and transfer files across the network. What I'm showing here is the Linux Mint File Manager. In the left-hand panel, I've accessed my laptop computer. In the right-hand panel, and I'll click it to make it active, you can see that we're on the home folder of the Linux Mint computer. That's great for flexibility and control, but what if all you want to do is send a file from one location to the other? Is there a quicker and easier way to do that? Turns out, yes, there is. I came across an article on the internet about an app called Warpinator. It allows computers or cell phones to transfer files from one location to the other. I'd like to get into some details on that. It was initially developed for Linux Mint, but it's now available for all Linux distros. It's also available for Windows, Android, and iOS devices. It's not officially supported for iOS, but there is a third-party app that will get it to work. Unfortunately, it's not available for the Mac at this time. In order to work, it has to be installed and running at the same time on both devices. One will be the source, the other will be the destination. You do not have full control like you do with networking, but it's still a useful app. Both devices have to be on the same Wi-Fi in order for this to work. You also have to set a group code on both devices. They have to match, just like setting up a pairing code for Bluetooth. Once you do that and you transfer your files, the files are end-to-end encrypted, so it is a very secure method of file transfer. We also need to update the firewall rules to allow the traffic back and forth across the Wi-Fi. We have to do it manually for Linux, but it's done automatically for Windows and Android. So let's get into how to set this up. Warpinator is available on Linux Mint simply by going to the software manager and searching for it. We'll type Warpinator in the search box, select either one. They'll both take us to the same place. And I personally prefer to install the system package. We'll install the app and all of its dependencies after we enter our password. Now that it's installed, we'll launch it. I'll minimize Software Manager. And I did mention that we do have to install a group code. Right now, Warpinator is telling us that we have limited functionality because we haven't set a secure mode with a unique group code. So let's do that right now. We can use whatever group code we like, but I'm simply going to take the default group code of Warpinator. I'm just going to tack my initials on the end to make it unique. And we'll set the code. We'll update the firewall rules. Obviously, since we're doing something to do with security, we need to authenticate with the password. Now we also need a location for the incoming files to be saved. We're going to look for the received files in the Warpinator folder in Downloads. And that's the default. We can click Other, but right now we've got a default folder under My User Account, Downloads, and Warpinator. So that's as good a place as any. I'm just going to leave that as is. And any incoming files can simply be moved to the appropriate location after that. Right now, Warpinator is telling us there are no other computers that have been found. Since this is our first installation, that makes sense because we do not have Warpinator installed on any other devices on our network. I have said Wi-Fi. You can also go wired. So it doesn't matter how you're connected on the network, Wi-Fi or Ethernet, you can connect to the other devices. You can see Warpinator is also available for Android, and it takes us to the link for the Google Play Store. It's available for iOS, available for Windows, and there's an adaptation of Warpinator called Winpinator, or we can go to the GitHub website and download the Warpinator for Windows from that location. But I'm going to switch over to my laptop computer running Windows, and we'll go ahead and install Warpinator, actually called Winpinator for Windows, on that device. To install Warpinator for Windows, let's download the installation program from the internet. Open whatever your preferred browser is and search for Warpinator for Windows. Here we've got the main website for Warpinator. Below that is the Warpinator for Windows app, which has been renamed Winpinator. Well, let's go to the main Warpinator website. A couple things I want to show you. We'll go to the Download Now page. Warpinator is available for Linux, which we know we have just installed it using Linux Mint. It's also available for Windows in either 32-bit or 64-bit version, available for Android on the Google Play Store, and available for the iPhone on the Apple Store. Now you'll notice the Mac OS is not represented here. There's not a version available, at least as of February 2025. So I'm going to download the Windows 64-bit version to match the version of Windows 11 that I'm running. In my Downloads folder, I like to create a subfolder for each of the apps that I download. That way I can keep the installer program and any installation notes or other notes all together in one package. We'll open it and download. Now, I will admit I had to disable my McAfee antivirus software. It viewed this as, unfortunately, as a virus. So currently I've got my McAfee antivirus turned off. We see that the download is complete. I'm going to turn the McAfee antivirus software back on before installing Warpinator. So there's going to be a little break in the video here. Now that I've turned the antivirus software back on, the firewall will also be in effect. So let's install Warpinator. We'll launch the setup program, and we'll minimize the browser and the software manager. The file manager, sorry. Agree to the public license. Since this is open source software, we'll install it in the default location in program files. And I want to create a desktop shortcut so we can get to it more easily later. And we'll just also use the Start Menu default folder. Now that it's installed, we can run it, and I'll skip reviewing the release notes. Now, if you recall, we needed a matching group code on both the sending and receiving device, and because of that, we have not yet installed or modified the group code to match what we did with the Linux Mint computer. Right now, the system is searching for the computers, and it did not find any other computers on the network. So let's fix that by going to File, Preferences, and click the Connection tab and add EAP at the end of the default code to match what we did in Linux Mint. Click OK. And it did find the Linux Mint computer. Now, if we had additional devices on the same network, they'd all be in a row down here, and we'd be able to pick the one that we want to send information from. So as a demonstration, I'm going to send a file from the laptop running Windows 11 to the desktop running PC Mint, Linux Mint. We can send either a file or a folder. And in this case, I've got a little icon. It's an image that I'm going to send. Click Open. And it's ready. We're awaiting approval from the receiver. So I'm going to switch over to the desktop computer running Linux Mint, and we'll see what it looks like on that side. You can see that we have a pop-up message here on Linux Mint saying that we have a new incoming file and do we want to accept it. That's an additional level of security, so we'll just say accept. File transfer is complete. I'm going to open Warpinator. I'm going to go to the Preferences and we'll open the Save folder. And here's the icon that we sent from the Windows laptop. Going back to the Windows laptop, you can see that there's a completed message from the sending side. So it works pretty well. You don't have the level of control that you do when you network across the home network, but it is convenient for a quick send. Now, how about if we want to do something from a cell phone, like an Android phone? How does that work? To install Warpinator on an Android phone, we can either do it from a desktop computer and go to play.google.com and install it on the selected device, or you can just do it straight from the phone. On the left-hand side of my screen, I've mirrored the screen from my cell phone. On the right-hand side, we've got the Warpinator window for Linux Mint for comparison. So let's go to the Play Store, click Search at the bottom, and enter Warpinator. Once we find the app, we can install it. Now that it's installed, we can open it. We'll have to allow Warpinator to send us notifications. That's how we'll know whether we have a file or folders to accept. So let's click Allow. You'll notice that Warpinator immediately discovered my laptop, the Yoga 720 laptop, and my desktop computer running Linux Mint. The reason is I've been installing and uninstalling the app prior to recording this, and the settings were saved, even though I was deleting the app. So you will have to click the three dots for more, go to Settings, scroll down to the group code, and enter whatever it is your group code is to be consistent with the other devices on your network. So we'll click OK, get out of settings. And just as a demonstration, I'm going to send a screenshot from my cell phone to the Office PC running Linux Mint. So that'll be my destination, and I'll click it. And down at the bottom right is an icon for upload. Tap that, and we can either upload an entire folder or just individual files. I'm going to click File and go to the place where I've got my screenshots saved and click the one I want to send. On the desktop, we've gotten an alert saying that there's a new incoming file that's coming from Android. Do we want to accept it? Yes. And on the Android phone, you can see that it was finished, meaning it's been accepted by the receiving device. And the Android device has turned green. Now we can either go directly, I'll show you that, to the Downloads folder, Warpinator, and there's the screenshot. The other option is within Warpinator to go to the menu and go to the Open Save folder. Both methods will get you to the same place. So let's have a look at that screenshot. I thought it was kind of cute, so I just saved it. Everything I've shown you so far has been success-oriented. But if you've used the computer at all, you know things don't always go quite right. On the Android side, if you have difficulty connecting to other devices on your network, let's go back one screen, you can go to the More options and rescan for devices. There's also a helpful page here on how to address connection issues. I also had somebody try this out just to make sure everything was going to work okay for him. And he had difficulty from the PC side connecting to the cell phone. Here's what he had to do. Go to the menu, select Preferences, and on the Connection tab, he had to change the network interface from automatic to the Ethernet adapter. And that cleared up the issue for him. Keep that in mind. First start with automatic, but keep that in mind and see if that works for you. I hope you found this useful and that it'll be helpful. I also have a course on udemy.com called Moving from Windows to Linux Mint. There's a link on YouTube that'll take you there and provide a discount code. So I hope to see you there. Thanks.